Welcome to The Movement, the podcast where we explore the heartbeat of the YMCA of Greater Kansas City. Join us as we dive into conversations with community leaders, volunteers, members, and associates who have been part of the Y's impact. Discover the inspiring stories of the past and exciting plans for the future as we celebrate how the Y continues to empower lives across our community. Get ready to be inspired in The Movement with the YMCA of Greater Kansas City. Welcome to The Movement. I'm your host, Mark Hulet, and just a quick reminder for our listeners that the YMCA is called a movement because it began as an idea from one man in London by the name of George Williams in 1844 and has since spread across the world. The YMCA has evolved, moving and shaking over time, making important contributions to society and adapting to different eras from the Industrial Revolution to the Digital Revolution. So the movement began in Kansas City in 1860, and we are excited that in 2025 we will be celebrating our 165th birthday. And I'm also excited for today's conversation because we're going to talk about youth development, one of the three focus areas, pillars of the YMCA. And the YMCA has been committed to kids and teens and youth ever since the beginning, and really from cradle to career. The Y empowers our youth through the movement. So we have two guests today who will be tag teaming this conversation. I'm excited to have them here. I'm joined by Dr. Jessica Dain, Superintendent of the Piper School District, and our own Darcy Swan, who is the Senior Vice President and Youth Development Department for the YMCA of Greater Kansas City. So Dr. Dain, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up at the Piper School District.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm beginning my fifth year. I'm the proud superintendent of the Piper School District. My background is teacher, coach. I was an English teacher, secondary English teacher, and coach volleyball, basketball, and track. Moved into administration because I wanted to have an impact on more students and more teachers and just support education, more importantly, probably pay it forward to people that had invested in me. I knew that I'd been very lucky growing up, and so it was a career that I found was very fulfilling, but also wanted to do something for kids like me in the future. So I've been a principal at the elementary, middle, and high school level. I'm starting to show my age here. And then I've worked at district office as an assistant superintendent in both teaching and learning and also support services, which then led me to my awesome opportunity of starting my fifth role as the superintendent in Piper.
Yeah, congratulations. That's great. 5 years and running fast. We're going to talk about some of the cool things that are happening in Piper along the way. But I also want to give Darcy a chance to introduce herself a little bit. And I believe you and Dr. Dain have crossed paths in some realms over the last few years, maybe?
Absolutely. So I am not quite to my second year in the YMCA. Prior to that, I was a 25-year educator. I started as a teacher, secondary English language arts.
Raising the roof over here.
Raising the roof. Started in Shawnee Mission as a teacher, moved into instructional coaching, moved into the principal role, moved into a district role. Went to Kansas City, Kansas public schools for a couple of years, and then after 25 years decided I was going to try something a little different with my education degree and looked into nonprofit and found that I could still serve families, serve youth, make an impact with the YMCA. And so that is how I came to be here, and Dr. Dain has been a mentor to me over the years. When I was receiving my superintendent's license with the state of Kansas, she served as a mentor, and I've always just, kind of followed strong women in education, and she would be one of those people that I would say just hits all of those check boxes.
You're very kind.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting, Dr. Dain, the coaching leading into these administrative leaderships. I mean, I'm a former coach and a former retired coach, I'll just call it that, before I joined the YMCA. So I appreciate seeing how that matriculated up, right? I mean, to coaching to leadership. And it's a lot of the connections between those two right along the way, building people up all the way. So it's back to school time, right, Dr. Dain? So as an educator leader in the district, the partnerships that the Y has, obviously working with youth in the school district, maybe talk to us a little bit about after-school care and the important part of supporting families at this back-to-school time and throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you right now is the last week of the summer program that we run with the Y. And it's been mission critical for our families in the Piper school districts and other school districts that their students have a safe place to go, a place where they're loved and nurtured, and there are high expectations for behavior, along with having a lot of fun. So we actually are closing down our summer session of the Y. I think we have 2 weeks to clean classrooms, and then we'll be ready for the before and after school program. So I will share with you that this is one of the things that I hear from families the most. They use the word game changer because of the flexibility of time that families can bring their children in the morning, that they can have them there in the afternoon in a safe place and know they're well taken care of. Some families use just the morning, some use just the afternoon, and some use both. But the great thing is that students are dropped off where they go to school, so they're not transitioned from one spot to another. It's a safe place where the educators know the kids and then the team from the Y know the kids, and it's really a nice alignment for that student to have people that care about them from the beginning of the day to the end of the day.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Darcy, maybe on your part, how do these strong partnerships help our youth development team support families as well?
Absolutely. Well, working with a Piper School District and many of the districts that we currently work with across the metro area, it's about relationship building with district personnel, relationship building at the building level with our principals and our teachers, our paras and our aides, who often help out in before and after school Y Club. It's about communication. It's about even transparency when, things are working or not working a certain way, and getting in there and problem solving with one another, and just being true partners in the work, because these are shared families, shared students, shared goals and outcomes oftentimes, because our role as before and after school care is to help schools meet their goals and their needs and fill gaps that may be within their day. I think in Piper we support PLC time as well for teachers to have their professional learning community time to plan and be in community with one another to move that work forward. And so we look for ways to help support districts any way we can.
Yeah, that's great. I know, Dr. Dain, there seems to be some innovative work that happens over in Piper. Maybe just, we talk about youth development, and when I look at that, I mean, our youth are, we're starting at 0 to 18, right? I mean, in that same window almost that the district is, and including when you get into some early education. But and maybe talk a little about the higher into this real world learning program at Piper, and bring us maybe up to speed on how that might prepare students for their future.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to start with what we call our North Star, and that's the Piper Portrait of a Graduate. And we spend about 6 months working with our community and asking them, what are the skills that you want your children to graduate with when they leave Piper and they go into the real world? It's a crazy fact that right now 60% of the jobs that will be available to students that are currently in kindergarten have not even been created yet.
Wow.
So we try to think ourselves as futurists a little bit. And while we don't know everything, we know the world is evolving. So there are skills that we want to ensure all of our students have: communication, creativity, collaboration, being able to get along with others, those cultural skills, thinking outside of the box. And so we have created programming. We started at our high school. Last year, we launched 6 real-world learning academies, and one of the great things and what we're so proud of is that inclusivity is our #1 core value in the Piper School District. And so unlike some other school districts that have phenomenal programs, but there's an application process, and maybe only 20 to 30 to 50% of the students get in Piper, every student is in a program so that they graduate with at least what we call a market value asset. So they not only have their high school diploma, but they have something else. So that might be an industry recognized credential, like being able to work on HVAC or being a welder. Or we have students that go to KCK Technical School and get degrees that way. But we also have client-based projects. We have dual enrollment for college credit. So we have a variety of tools that we want to have in place. I say all of that to share that we share that kind of programming and thinking with our team at the Y. And so as they're creating activities, they talk about creativity, they talk about collaboration, they talk about communication, they talk about treating others as you would want to be treated. And so really we've taken this real world learning that has become, it's the fabric of what we do in Piper, but it's not just from our school day. It's with all of our partners, like Darcy talked about. And so the team at the Y has wrapped around that idea, and they're offering those same kind of ideas and programmings before and after school.
Yeah, that's fabulous. That was going to be my next question. Tell me the continuity between, the early learning programs and the things that were, the YDS programs that we're doing and the summer programs that we're doing, and the continuity to take it all the way through that graduation
Absolutely.
point. And I appreciate hearing about career and college development, because that's where it is. I mean, there are so many jobs and so many things that kids and young adults can do today that don't require a college degree. They might require certification, they might require some other way to get there, but how do we continue to prep that? And those are things, those are programs that we continue to explore and try to figure out how to define even further for the Y. So I appreciate that, and I love to see that continuity happening. So I got a couple of questions for you both. I might ask you both. I'll start with Darcy on this one, and then maybe a follow-up with you, Dr. Dain. So Darcy, what trends are you seeing that the kids need from a support standpoint? What are you seeing out there, and how does a strong partnership with the school district, again, very similar, help meet those needs?
Right. Well, before and after school programming is simply a microcosm of the actual school day, right? It is structures and transition time and management and all of the things that go into making school successful happen during Y Club as well. And I think the trends that I'm seeing first would be the demand for childcare before and after school for working families. And I think another one would be just having that caring, loving mentor adult as part of a student's life. They get that during the school day. We want to be an extension of that for their school day. So having that caring adult, that adult that's going to say their name, ask how they're doing, know something about them, make that personal connection with them. And then as Dr. Dain talked about, another trend that I'm seeing with our programming is connecting to what schools are doing so that students can see the continuity and consistency within their day. I think it was last fall I started a superintendent roundtable so that the superintendents of our schools could come together and talk to the Y about what they're working on through their strategic plan. And across the board, real world learning is just one of those initiatives, if you will, that schools are engaging with, because it comes with so many positive outcomes for kids. It comes with that collaboration and communication and problem solving and real world thinking. And so we've, just dove into our own curriculum to look at ways we could structure activities and projects and community engagement that would bring that to the forefront of what we're asking our kids to do with enrichment during our time. So I think that's a trend, is how we can connect to what schools are already doing and we can help them achieve those goals. And I think another trend we're seeing is the need for behavioral support for kids. Sure. When you're in a before and after school situation, oftentimes those are large spaces. Those are whole group spaces. Those spaces don't necessarily have special education supports or para or aid supports that some of our students are used to having during their school day. So our staff is trained with trauma-informed care, trauma-smart training, how to de-escalate situations, how to provide strategies to students to help them be successful in those spaces. So I think that's another trend I see, is just how can we help with the behavioral management, behavioral support for kids so that they are successful in our spaces. Again, it goes back to the need of the family needing that childcare. So we want to be sure we're a support.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Dr. Dain? Thoughts?
Actually, it's a great transition to what I was thinking about. We have students. The trend that we're seeing is a lot more of our kids are coming to school needing mental health supports, which a lot of times translates into behavior that is sometimes negative in nature. And some of the best stories I can think about this partnership are after a child that we serve during the day has had a bad day, the principal or the teacher will go right down and tell the Y Care staff person, hey, want to let you know Johnny, Sally has had a really bad day. So as you look about how you're going to care for this child for the next 2 hours, today's the day they may need a little bit of extra help. And so the fact that they're utilizing, the Y is using the same trauma-informed care practices, that's exactly the same practices that we use, trauma-informed care. It's a really nice way for us to transition for those kids, especially on that personal level, on that day level when something's happened. Sometimes it will be the exact reverse. They'll come at 7 o'clock in the morning and they've had a really tough start at home. And so the Y care supervisor that's there will make sure the principal knows, or the classroom teacher knows that, hey, we've had a little bit of a tough morning. So as you transition into the day, want to give you a heads up, they may need a little extra support. So truly, as Darcy talks about the nurturing and the relationships, we want those children to know we all love and care about them. We use the same language because it's really confusing when one group of people say one thing to me and another group says something else. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing about the partnership, is that we're utilizing a lot of the same strategies in the way that we interact with students.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. You're both passionate. I mean, you can it just exudes, right? I mean, you come in the room and first of all, you're very excited people. You're passionate about what you do. You've been doing it for your career for several years. And I think about what you do. Sometimes it's work, but the passion drives you, right? Sometimes, I mean, it's a roller coaster some days, right? It's a roller coaster probably every day. It just depends, just like those kids coming in. Some days they're coming in here and some days they're not, some days they're flying high. So maybe just, Dr. Dain, why? Why are you so passionate about youth development? Why are you so passionate about helping kids?
You know what? I think it's because I realized at a fairly young age how much I love school and how much I love my mom and dad and how much I loved the teachers in the community and the people that made me happy by supporting me. I think about the places that I was happiest. It was at church, at Sunday school, then at home, and then at the gym, at school, and school activities. And so the opportunity to take something that was really joyful for me, that wasn't work, that was happy, that allowed me to work on my skills. We talked about sports earlier. I mean, whether in the classroom or in the gym, learning to collaborate, learning to be a leader. And it just was something that filled my bucket. And I was like, it would be crazy not to do anything else except, to help other students. The other thing I will share is that I remember a conversation I had with my dad when I was about a sophomore in high school. And I was kind of wavering between, do I want to be a teacher and a coach? And I was also really interested in the law. He worked in the field of law. And I remember him telling me, I've had a great career and I love what I do, but I always wished I would have been a teacher. So as you choose your career, choose wisely, find something that isn't work, but it's a passion, it's what you love. And it just has always been. And I can't think of doing anything else. They're the future. It's the future. So it's really fun work.
Yeah. Darcy, what about you?
A similar story in that it's about people. And I can tell you my second grade teacher, my sixth grade teacher, and my creative writing teacher in high school were all role models and mentors for me to continue me down this path of education. And I see it as a service. I'm a service-oriented person. I'm looking for ways to serve. And so for me, that's what played so nicely with being a teacher or being an instructional coach or an administrator, or, I had a passion for curriculum and not just the who we were teaching, but what we were teaching and how you plan for that. And there's an art to teaching. And I loved that side of it too. And so I think that's why making this transition to YMCA and youth development makes sense, because it's the impact is even greater and there's even more room for that creativity and the art of what we do in childcare.
I love that. I would also add, Mark, if it's okay for me just to add on to this a little bit, is early in my career, I also saw students and parents that struggled. And a lot of times the parents that struggled didn't have a great experience in school. Yeah. And so I think that's part of, for me, why I stayed in the career and just enjoy it so much, is because it is such an integral part of a child's development. And sometimes parents can't always be there. They do the best they can. We talk about that all the time. We get to work with their most valued treasure. And so that's a big responsibility and something that I don't take lightly. And so when we have programs like the Y where children can be in a safe space early in the morning to later in the evening, where mom and dad can go do the things that they need to do, when we have families that really, they're struggling month to month, right? It's the dimes and the nickels and the pennies, and the fact that their kids are in a safe place, that are loved and nurtured, and that we can keep positive communication and positive relationships in place is what I think is really beautiful about the partnership with the Y.
Yeah, you guys, both your comments just take me back to my early days. I'll go back to my coaching days. You've got my mind spinning on so many things, and I think back to, I coached college football for 13 years, and I'm working with kids, and they're young adults, and they're maturing, and it was tough. It was tough, and making a career change and going to the Y 25 years ago, and stepping into a YMCA and watching the kids. Not only my kids were 1 and 3 at the time. But watching the kids in the Raytown community that literally flooded the Richard C. Green Y in Raytown. And the ones that got there early because there was no other place to go, they weren't standing on the corners, their parents dropped them off. I mean, it's a different day and a time 25 years ago. But there were 2 kids that every day regularly were in the lobby of the Y sleeping. And, I mean, there's no other place for them to be that was safe. And just listening to that just conjures up all those reasons why, for the time that I've been with the Y, I've just been passionate about kids. And it just goes back to working upstream, right? And catching kids at 18, 19, 20 is a lot different than catching kids at 5, 6, 7, and 8 and being able to hopefully impact their life and put them in programs. So I appreciate both your answers on that. So Darcy, maybe what's some tips that you'd have for families as, they're feeling this stress about what I'm going to do with my kids and make it a smooth transition into the school year. You got some thoughts on that? I'm sure you've got tons of answers on that.
Sure. No, it's just, planning and preparation, knowing that we have programming available for before and after school, and, how to get their kiddos signed up, and working with the school to make sure families have the information that they need, helping families understand what goes into Y Club, the things that we get to do through Y Club, the experiences that kids will have through their before and after school experience. We do a pretty good job of connecting with all of our families when we see that enrollment roll in, and making sure that if parents do have questions, we get those answered, but also working with the school so they're armed with information for parents if they have questions, and they're always promoting. We have the service available because it's really what it is. It is a service for our families. And so I think as parents prepare, it's just knowing they have resources. And the resources that we can provide, that safety, that enrichment, that connection to school, that connection to that adult, is there for them if they need it.
Yeah. And Dr. Dain, what's the school district? What's the plans that you guys do to help those families out early on as well?
Well, I would say we echo everything that Darcy said. On our side, we really do try to over-communicate those opportunities. So we run that in our newsletters, in the school newsletters, making sure it's on the website, that it's available. I think the one thing I would add is to parents, if you're not sure, ask. And I have this great story about something that happened with the Y Care last year. And we were getting enrollment ready, and I had a parent reach out, and he had been deployed. He was overseas. He'd lost his wife, came back, had 2 daughters, and he said, I need help. We need a spot. I know no one here. We have nothing else. I don't know what else to do. And we were able to work with the Y and get 2 positions for his 2 daughters. That was a game changer for him, where he knew that he was supported. So even if you don't know, if you can't find the answers, advocate for yourself, ask, because schools and the Y really want to be resources that support kids.
Great answers. Here's a good one, too. It's post-pandemic. People say, do we still reference the pandemic? I think we do.
We try not to.
We try not to. I mean, again, we're still shell-shocked from that, right? But one of the things that really has come out of that is this whole workforce development piece, right? And teachers are in the crosshairs, or lack of teachers is just at the top of the bucket list, right? It doesn't matter if the Y or in the school district. So, it's an ongoing process. Dr. Dain, what would you say to someone considering a career in education and working with children?
You know, I think it's the most important career in the world. We're literally building the future. And so I think that is something to have such an impact on one child, on 30 children, on 3,000, on 30,000 children. I mean, I just think it's so important in realizing in those formative years, especially kids that maybe have parents that are having a difficult time or they're having to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. I have my oldest daughter is a teacher, and we talk all the time about, it isn't the highest paid job, but the satisfaction that you get in really changing a child's trajectory. You talk about being workforce ready, and that's what we have in our infrastructure, like we talked about earlier. And so just the opportunity, I mean, it's more than just teaching the ABCs. There is nothing more fulfilling than when a child becomes literate, when they've learned to read. I think about that as a mother, and I think about that when I was a principal and now as a superintendent. And so those life skills, and we could go on down the line about, what are those milestones, but getting to be a part of that. And sometimes you don't hear thank you, but a lot of times you do. But just like Darcy here, sitting here today, referenced 3 teachers that made a difference in her life. That's what education gets to do for children. And I can't think of any other better profession.
Got anything to add to that over there, Darcy?
The word that comes to mind is impact.
Yeah.
The impact is so much greater than, I feel like, anyone going into or considering working with kids. The impact that has on you emotionally, mentally, even physically, you feel it when you do see that kiddo succeed, and whatever success means for that child. You've had a hand in that. You've had a role in that. And I don't know any other feeling than that impact being something that I remember being that teacher in that classroom, seeing the light bulb go on for a kiddo, or seeing that kiddo achieve something that they didn't know, or maybe even didn't have faith that they could achieve. And I think it just goes back to being that caring adult, that caring mentor. And so, we're always looking at the why for young adults thinking about going into education or social work or, pediatric medicine. Anybody that's going to be working with kids in the future, we're trying to get them into the why to work with kiddos early on so that they can just see the everything on the horizon from education to that behavior piece, to the management piece, to how fulfilling all of those pieces can be for you when you're the one providing that impact. Again,
you continue to make me reminisce and go back, and I'm thinking of Mrs. Rail, my kindergarten teacher. I mean, I'm going back to kindergarten. That's a few years ago, but Coach Paget, Coach Emerson, I can think back to those that in Mr. Singard. But yeah, I mean, you think back to the names, right? And just where you are today, and appreciate that support. Anything else that comes to mind that we didn't cover today that you'd like to put out there? I know, how do we connect if somebody is interested in a career with the Y or a career at Piper? How would you guys let them know how to get a hold of you?
Well, for us, we're very digital. So, we're posted on all social media platforms. Plus, we have our website. And if you go to our careers page on our YMCA website, you're going to find lots of opportunities to work in Y Club across the metro area.
Yeah.
I would say ditto to that. And I would say if you are currently in a college preparatory profession where you're looking at it, then come be a student teacher with us, spend some time with us, fall in love with us. And I promise that we'll have a contract ready and we'll have you join the team at Pirate Nation.
Pirate Nation, I love it. So I do this here at the end. I've got a final 4 for each of you. So doesn't have to be a long answer, but hopefully something pops into your head pretty quick. We'll start with Dr. Dain. So what book are you reading or listening to right now? I have to put in listening. I learned that I have to there's a lot of, things happening in cars and radios these days. So
I just started a book called Get a Grip, and it's about leadership and running an organization at as high effective level as you can.
Appropriate for you. Darcy?
I'm rereading a book, Brene Brown's Dare to Lead.
Super.
I always go back to her anecdotes and find relevance in what she has to teach through her leadership style.
That's a good one.
I'm going to make you go back to your younger days, Darcy.
Okay.
What was your favorite childhood cartoon?
Oh, Scooby-Doo. I love mysteries.
I think you got the answer. It's like, Dr. Dain,
That was mine.
you can have the same one.
Scooby-Doo. And I have to say, like Scooby treats, my mom would even, so I was a latchkey kid, so came home. So I hustled home because I knew what time Scooby-Doo came on. She'd have my treat, my snack, after school snack ready. And that's what I would have during when Scooby got his treats.
I love it.
Damn it, you stole my answer.
Dr. Dain, what's your superpower?
Gosh, that's hard.
Darcy, what's your superpower?
I think for me, optimism. I throughout my career, through, everyone has ups and downs personally, professionally. I think optimism, growth mindset, figuring out how to move away from no but into yes and.
Lovely.
I was going to say communication.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. Try to be transparent, try to over communicate. I think it's important to give people feedback, even when the feedback is difficult, because I think it's all about continuous growth. I think it's about sharing. Darcy and I have had a relationship and mentoring and talking and cheering people on. So I'm going to go with communication.
I love that. Those are great. So last one, Darcy, who or what inspires you the most?
So I am going to say right now in this stage of my life, my children inspire me the most. I am a parent to a kiddo who struggled in school and who has overcome lots of obstacles in his life. I'm also a parent to that go-getter, you can't stop her, can't slow her down. And I learn from both of them what's important in life. So for me, that's what inspires me.
That's great. I'm going to say my parents. I'm beginning my 30th year in education, and a lot of the positions that I've been in, I'll be in a room and I may be the only woman in a room, or I'll be one of just a few. I think in the superintendency at the national level, we've gone from having 13% of women to 25% of women. But from a very early age, both of my parents were like, girls can do anything. We didn't get slowed down. I wasn't put into or asked, do you want to do ballet? It was, do you want to do ballet or would you like to play soccer? And I can go, and even though I don't mean to make gender roles there, but I think they raised me at a time when women weren't always given the opportunities. And so now raising two daughters of my own, continuing that women, people, we can all do exactly what we need to do.
And that, my friends, is the dynamic duo of Dr. Jessica Dain, Superintendent of Piper School District, and Darcy Swan, the Senior VP of Youth Development for the Y. Thank you for both for being in and on the movement. Stay motivated, stay connected, and keep moving forward with us in the movement. Together, we're building a stronger community, one story at a time. Thanks for spending time with us on the movement. Visit kansascitymymca.org for more information. And be sure to follow the YMCA of Greater Kansas City on social media for the latest updates.